Hello, I'm back. Hopefully, I'm better. Um, if you've had corona, my hat or whatever goes off to you. Like, I'm sorry. Thankfully, I didn't have a very bad case of it. And if that's not a very bad case of it, then, being healthy is such a better thing than being sick. So I'm finally out of quarantine today. So I'm still going to stay at home, but I'm trying to get back to some kind of normalcy. I tried this before when I was right in the middle of everything and still having trouble getting my breath, and found that talking so excessively was too much. So I'm giving it another try. I'm able to carry on conversations now with people. Um, Haley, it's good to see you, or not see you, but see your typing. But when I talk on the phone with family and things, I seem better. The sun is so bad. That's a new name to me. Maya Richard. Hello. Let's see if that's what it is. Yeah. D. Lamar. Well, technically, I was just saying, D. Lamar, that technically this is my last day in quarantine. I still have some headache and some fatigue and some shortness of breath, but I certainly feel a lot better. Thanks for asking. If you guys have it, I'm sorry. It's really exhausting. Um, but the doctor said I had a mild case. I got that little oximeter that measures your blood oxygen levels. And I had a quiet Christmas. Of course, I didn't see my family because I didn't want to expose them. And so hopefully we're going to get together. So my granddaughter still hasn't seen her Christmas present. So hopefully we're going to get together this evening. Fingers crossed. We'll see. So let's see. Oh, and Siddharth, if you see this later, hi, Ray. I had a very, very quiet Christmas, but it was lovely. I got to hear from the people that are important to me. So that's the important thing. And I know they love me. And that's the important thing. Um, what was I going to say about the book? Oh, Siddharth, I did watch Pride and Prejudice on Netflix. I didn't like with having corona, I kind of drift in and out and slept. So I definitely still want to watch it. So maybe we can watch it this coming week for the holidays, maybe over for New Year's. I need to set that up. We need to set that up and plan it. Stellar Eider, hello. It's good to have new names. These are people I'm not familiar with, so I'm glad you're here. And I hope I laughed. Normally in 48 hours, I have like 8 to 10,000 views. Christmas Day, it was like 850. So good for you guys. You were not doing homework. You were being with your family or doing the things you should be doing for the holidays. But, reading is always a good thing, no matter what the day. All right, enough chit chat. Let's read. So I was so out of breath when I read. Let's see what had happened. Elizabeth, did you see that Jane does not think ill of? Jane is still nice. Jane's always nice. Those of you that are new, Haley is one of our regulars in Discord and on The View here, and you will find that our readers are really friendly. We've become a little family. So if you are looking for a place to belong, come on. If you're a reader, you belong with us. Maya, thank you. I'm glad. What book were you listening to before? So I'm going to jump in on 260. Well, you can't see that because of the sun. 266 up at the top. But does Lydia know nothing of this? Can she be ignorant of what you and Jane seem so well to understand? Oh, yes, that is the worst of all. Till I was in Kent and saw so much both of Mr. Darcy and his relation, Colonel Fitzwilliam. Boy, I can't read. I was ignorant of the truth myself, and I returned home. The Shire was to leave Meryton in a week or fortnight's time. As that was the case, neither Jane, to whom I related the whole, nor I, thought it necessary to make our knowledge public, For of what use could it apparently be to anyone that the good opinion which all the neighborhood had of him should then be overthrown? And even when it was settled that Lydia should go with Mrs. Forrester, the necessity of opening her eyes to his character never occurred to me. That she could be in danger from the deception never entered my head. That such a consequence of this should ensue, you may easily believe, was far enough from my thoughts. So she didn't have any idea that Wickham would be interested in her own family, so she didn't warn the family. Um, then there were none. That seems to be a well watched one, and I didn't realize it. Um, Ollie, hello. Bruce Adams. I'm so glad, Bruce. I enjoy that you enjoy the readings. No, I don't see. Oh, hey, Kelly. I'm like, Kelly, I don't see Kelly. Hey, Kelly. I'm feeling better, Kelly. How about you? How are you doing? Have you stayed healthy? Guys, when you've done this long enough, you start to have regular people that you feel like you know. So join the family. Come often. Chat more. And even when it was settled that Lydia should go with Mrs. There we saw that. When they all removed to Brighton, therefore, you had no reason, I suppose, to believe them fond of each other? Not the slightest. I can remember no symptom of affection on either side, and had anything of the kind been perceptible, you must be aware that ours is not a family on which it could be thrown away. When first he entered the corps, she was ready enough to admire him, but so we all were. Every girl in or near Meryton was out of her senses about him for the first 2 months, but he never distinguished her by any particular attention, and consequently, after a moderate period of extravagant and wild admiration, her fancy for him gave way, and others of the regiment, who treated her with more distinction, again became her favorites. So they're trying to put the pieces together of when did they become serious about each other. It may be easily believed that however little of novelty could be added to their fears, hopes, and conjectures on this interesting subject by its repeated discussion, no other could detain them from it long, during the whole of the journey. From Elizabeth's thoughts it was never absent, fixed there by the keenest of all anguish, self-reproach. She could find no interval of ease or forgetfulness. They traveled as expeditiously as possible, reached Longbourn by dinner time the next day. It was a comfort to Elizabeth to consider that Jane could not have been wearied by long expectations. Happy to hear that you're healthy, Kelly. Happy that everybody's healthy. I like the word expeditiously. I can't say it now. Expeditious. Expeditiously. Do you guys ever struggle with being able to say a word and it just gets tangled in your mouth? It's an ongoing struggle for me. If you've read with me long, you know that there are certain words in every book that I can't get that word out. In Brave New World, the Havernosky, the method that's not the right word, the method of incantation that they do. I never can say that word. The little gardeners, attracted by the sight of a chaise, were standing on the steps of the house as they entered the paddock, and when the carriage drove up to the door, the joyful surprise that lighted up their faces and displayed itself over their whole bodies in a variety of capers and crisps was the first pleasing earnest of their welcome. Elizabeth jumped out, and after giving each of them a hasty kiss, hurried into the vestibule, where Jane, who came running downstairs from her mother's apartment, immediately met her. Elizabeth, as she affectionately embraced her, whilst tears filled the eyes of both, lost not a moment in asking whether anything had been heard of the fugitives. "Not yet," replied Jane, "but now that my dear uncle has come, I hope everything will be well. Is my father in town?" "Yes, he went on Tuesday, as I wrote you word." "And have you heard from him often?" "We have heard only once. He wrote me a few lines on Wednesday to say that he had arrived in safety and to give me his directions, which I particularly begged him to do. He merely added that he should not write again till he had something of importance to mention." "And my mother? How is she? How are you all?" "My mother is tolerably well, I trust, though her spirits are greatly shaken. She is upstairs, and will have great satisfaction in seeing you all. She does not leave her dressing room. Mary and Kitty, thank heaven, are quite well. "But you, how are you?" cried Elizabeth. "You look pale. How much you must have gone through." Her sister, however, assured her of being perfectly well, and their conversation, which had been passing while Mr. and Mrs. Gardiner were engaged with their children, was now put an end to by the approach of the whole party. Jane ran to her uncle and aunt and welcomed and thanked them both with alternate smiles and tears. When they were all in the drawing room, the questions which Elizabeth had already asked were, of course, repeated by the others, and they soon found that Jane had no intelligence to give. The sanguine hope of good, however, which the benevolence of her heart suggested, had not yet deserted her. She still expected that it would all end well, and that every morning would bring some letter, either from Lydia or her father, to explain their proceedings and pronounce the marriage, perhaps. Mrs. Bennet, to whose apartment they all repaired after a few minutes' conversation together, received them exactly as might be expected, with tears and lamentations of regret, invectives against the villainous conduct of Mr. Wickham, and complaints of her own sufferings and ill usage, blaming everybody but the person to whose ill-judging indulgence the errors of her daughter must principally be owing, herself. Um, Helped school readings. I'm glad to hear that. As a former teacher, that's what I want. I want to know I'm helping students. Um, Bye, Stellar. I have to go back and read what everybody says. I try and post the link to Discord often, Haley, and I'll try and do it at the end of this reading too. In fact, I might be able to do it while we read. I have to go to Discord. Although lately we haven't been chatting so much, I noticed. Copy it, and then I have to go to YouTube and drop it in the chat. Your channel. This is it. Paste it in. I'm so not good at this. Paste. And let's see if it pops up. Hey, Farid. I didn't warn y'all that I was going live. Sorry about that. Yep, there it is. There's Discord. So if you want to join in, Haley, if Siddharth's here, he'll drop it in for me. But if I feel like I'm going to be online long enough, then I can sometimes stop and do it like I just did. But I'm just not that coordinated sometimes. Oh, good, Fareed. I try to let you guys know in Discord when I'm going, but I just kind of impulsively. I've been binge watching something on Netflix, and I thought I need to stop for a while. The sun is out; it's pretty. I'll come out while I'm feeling well, and before my kids come over, and just did it. So, how is Canada? Do you get this beautiful sunshine like I'm getting today? I'm just in light sleeves. It's not so cold out. It was cool this morning, but it's not so cold right now. Um, the sun is strong though, so it's hard for me to see what you guys write. So they're all still trying to figure out what to do about Lydia and her elopement. It's not an elopement. It's just been a, bad girlment. I don't know what you want to call it. They've just run off together and spent the night, and it's very inappropriate in their society. Mrs. Bennet, whose apartment they all repaired after a few minutes' conversation together, received them exactly as might be expected, with tears and lamentations of regret. Oh, we already read that. If I had been able, said she, to carry my point of going to Brighton with all my family, this would not have happened. But my poor dear Lydia had nobody to take care of her. Of course, it's not Lydia's fault. Um, I'm saying that sarcastically. It is Lydia's fault. She's an indulged spoiled girl that doesn't understand the ways of the world. Snowing here, there in Canada, snowing, so beautiful. Although, if you don't, I don't have to drive in the snow. Um, Why did the Foresters ever let her go out of their sight? I'm sure there was some great neglect or other on their side, for she is not the kind of girl to do such a thing. If she had been well looked after, I always thought they were very unfit to have charge of her, but I was overruled, as I always am. She's always the victim. Poor dear child. And now where's Mr. Bickham gone away? No, and now here's Mr. Bennet gone away, and I know he will fight Wickham wherever he meets him. And then he will be killed, and what is to become of us all? She doesn't have a lot of faith in her husband, does she? The Collinses will turn us out before he is cold in his grave. And if you are not too kind to us, brother, I do not know what we shall do. They all exclaimed against such terrific ideas, and Mr. Gardiner, after general assurances of his affection for her and all her family, told her that he meant to be in London the very next day, and would assist Mr. Bennet in every endeavor for recovering Lydia. Do not give way to useless alarm, added he, though it's right to be prepared for the worst. There is no occasion to look on it as certain. It is not quite a week since they left Brighton. In a few days more we may gain some news of them. Until we know that they are not married and have no design of marrying, do not let us give the matter over as lost. As soon as I get to town, I shall go to my brother and make him come home with me to Gracechurch Street, and then we may consult together as to what to be done. Oh, my dear brother, replied Mrs. Bennet, that is exactly what I would wish most for. And now do, when you get to town, find them out, wherever they may be. And if they're not married already, make them marry. As for wedding clothes, do not let them wait for that, but tell Lydia she shall have as much money as she chooses to buy them after they're married. And above all things, keep Mr. Bennet from fighting. Tell him what a dreadful state I'm in, that I'm frightened out of my wits, and I'm having tremblings, flutterings all over me, such spasms in my side, pains in my head, and such beatings at my heart, that I can no rest by night nor by day. Ah, she is the drama queen, isn't she? And tell my dear Lydia not to give any directions about her clothes till she has seen me, for she does not know which are the best warehouses. Oh, brother, how kind you are. I know you will contrive it all. Um, Ontario, 15 years. Well, there you guys, two Ontarians. Toronto. A small world, isn't it? We have a lot of people, they're not on today, but I have lately been followed by a lot of people from India. So Canada and India, we used to get a lot of New Zealanders, um, Australians. California is my biggest state. I don't know why, maybe just because the population is so big in California. The US is clearly the biggest number of viewers. So I um, I don't know what I was going to say. I lost my train of thought. All right, back to reading. But Mr. Gardiner, though he assured her again of his earnest endeavors in the cause, could not avoid recommending moderation to her, as well in her hopes and fears. And after talking with her in this manner till dinner was on table, they left her to vent all her feelings on the housekeeper who attended in the absence of her daughters. Though her brother and sister were persuaded that there was no real occasion for such a seclusion from the family, they did not attempt to oppose it, for they knew that she had not prudence enough to hold her tongue before the servants which they waited at table, and judged it better that one only of the household, and the one whom they could trust most, should comprehend all her fears and solicitude on the subject. In the dining room, they were soon joined by Mary and Kitty, who had been too busily engaged in their separate apartments to make their appearance before. One came from her books, and the other from her toilette. The faces of both, however, were tolerably calm, and no change was visible in either, except that the loss of her favorite sister, or the anger which she had herself incurred in the business, had given something more fretfulness than usual to the accents of Kitty. As for Mary, she was mistress enough of herself to whisper to Elizabeth, with a countenance of grave reflection, soon after they were seated at the table. Well, the weather is cold, but some people, I like when I was in Sweden, I loved that cold weather. I don't know that now, like driving in it. In Sweden, you take public transportation or you can walk everywhere. So here, living where I do, where you have to be in the car constantly, and I think Canada, I mean, you probably have better public transportation than we do, but I wouldn't want to have to mess with the scraping every time you go anywhere and the preparing your driveway and that kind of thing. But I do have to say, it's nice to have the weather we do have here. Like to just sit on my porch on a lovely afternoon, the sun pouring in. It gets dark early. I think the worst of it, not says Dibidar, that's an Eid holiday, but the sham, it's the longest night is over. We've had the longest night in winter already, and now we should start seeing the days get longer again. This is a most unfortunate affair, and will be probably much talked of, but we must stem the tide of malice and pour into the wounded bosoms of each the balm of sisterly consolation. We shouldn't fight with each other. Then, perceiving in Elizabeth no inclination of replying, she added, unhappy as the event must be for Lydia, we may draw from it this useful lesson, that loss of virtue in a female is irretrievable, that one false step involves her in endless ruin, that her reputation is no less brittle than it is beautiful, and that she cannot be too much guarded in her behavior towards the undeserving of the other sex. Who is this that's saying that? Kitty. Kitty is just as flighty as Lydia. The sunshine. Well, let me see the sunshine. It's a beautiful blue day. I can't see anything you see because the sun's so bright that when I turn the camera, I see nothing. The screen goes black. Sydney Brown, Merry Late Christmas. Now we'll say Happy New Year. Hopefully 2021 brings us, I don't know, I've gotten a lot of good lessons out of 2020. I'm grateful for, as my Muslim Arabic friends say, Alhamdulillah for everything, that there's a plan for everything. And I've been able to learn patience and flexibility and acceptance, to, as Robert Burns, the poet, said, the displayed plans of mice and men, afgangagale, often go wrong. And so the things I had hoped for this year have not been, but there's a reason for everything, and I accept that reason. And there's some peace in that. There's less strife in that. So Christmas for me this year was very peaceful when I was by myself. She hasn't seen it yet, Fareed. I hope she's coming over this evening. Oh, can y'all see it when I put the? See, I can't see anything when I turn it away. It's out there, waiting to be played in. I'm waiting. I can't wait to get on it and have fun with it. She's so active. She's not one that reads. I can't get her to sit on my lap and read. So I'm thinking I'll get her out there and play with her. I'll sit on the porch being grandmotherly, and she'll be out exploring like a little buccaneer out there. And I'm really looking forward to that. My son in Brazil sent her one of those pop-up princess tents. That's here too. So she'll have both those things to play with, I hope, tonight. We hope they're coming over tonight. Sydney pops in every now and then, if I'm not mistaken. Sydney, aren't I right? Yeah, you say, do you remember me? So I do. So I remember the name. I know you've come before. See, Haley, you're such a good hostess too. Oh, my book's upside down. That's not helpful. Elizabeth lifted up her eyes in amazement, but was too much oppressed to make any reply. Mary, however, continued to console herself with such kind of moral extractions from the evil before them. In the afternoon, the two elder Miss Bennets were able to be for half an hour by themselves, and Elizabeth instantly availed herself of the opportunity of making many inquiries, which Jane was equally eager to satisfy. After joining in general lamentations over the dreadful sequel of this event, which Elizabeth considered us all but certain, and Miss Bennet could not assert to be wholly impossible, the former continued this subject by saying, "But tell me all and everything about it, which I have not already heard. Give me further particulars. What did Colonel Forster say? Had they no apprehension of anything about the elopement took place? They must have seen them together forever." Colonel Forster did own that he had often suspected some partiality, especially on Lydia's side, but nothing to give him any alarm. I'm so grieved for him. His behavior was attentive and kind to the utmost. He was coming to us in order to assure us of his concern before he had any idea of their not being gone to Scotland. When that apprehension first got abroad, it hastened his journey. And was Denny convinced that Wickham would not marry? Did he know of it, their intending to go off? Had Colonel Forster seen Denny himself? Yes, but when questioned by him, Denny denied knowing anything of their plan and would not give his real opinion about it. He did not repeat his persuasion of their not marrying. From that, I am inclined to hope he might have been misunderstood before. Until Colonel Forster came himself, not one of you entertained a doubt, I suppose, of their being really married. How was it possible that such an idea should enter our brains? By the way, Haley, shout out to you. If you want to paste your, or maybe in the comments when we're done, Haley is reading books too, and she's doing. Did you do a Christmas Carol? Haley, what's your other one? I know you. Oh, you're reading in Austen, aren't you? Or Bronte? I forget. It's one of the ones I like. So go ahead and share that because people are always asking me for more titles than I can keep up with. So if we have another reader, I really want to support that. Erhan Yinagan, I'm from Canada too. Mountains Echoed. Not my favorite Khalid Hosseini. You're very, very welcome, Erhan. Little Women. I knew it was one I loved. And you told me you were going to do a Christmas Carol. I'm glad you liked And the Mountains Echo. And the Mountains, echoed. I always say roared. I'm never sure. I got a little lost. I mean, it was so long and there were so many stories woven into it. I have a theory that it's to explain that there are just so many stories that are impacted by a country at war or a country that's torn against itself. And all the complexities and how far, we go to France and we go to America and all that ripple effect of it. But sometimes it was just hard. There were so many stories going on. It was hard to keep up. And I don't know that I ever quite made the connection. I mean, I did to some extent, but the early fable of the children being sent off to the Monster Mountain or whatever it was. It's been too many years since I read it. That I didn't feel like I completely understood that. I'd need to go back and reread it again. Erhan, thank you so much, and very best for you for 2021 as well. I have a link for my playlist. I don't know why that. I still think A Thousand Splendid Suns. Erhan said his daughter says the best one is Kite Runner. Kite Runner is harder to read than not harder, like harder emotionally. It tears on your heart when you see the cruelty of many men. And it's a story of two boys. They're not brothers, but they're raised as brothers. And it is a beautiful story, but my favorite is A Thousand Splendid Suns. I love the relationship of the two women in that story, but maybe because I'm a woman. Oakville. I don't know where Oakville is. Is it a suburb of Toronto? I don't know Canada very well, sadly. So back to the story. How was it I'm on page 272 for those joining me. How is it possible that such an idea should enter our brains? I felt a little uneasy, a little fearful of my sister's happiness with him in marriage, because I knew that his conduct had not been always quite right. My father and mother knew nothing of that. They only knew how imprudent a match it must be. Kitty then owned with a very natural triumph on knowing more than the rest of us that in Lydia's last letter she prepared her for such a step. She had known, it seems, of their being in love with each other many weeks, but not before they went to Brighton. No, I believe not. And did Colonel Forster appear to think ill of Wickham himself? Does he know his real character? I must confess he did not speak so well of Wickham as he formerly did. He believed him to be imprudent and extravagant, and since this sad affair has taken place, it is said that he left Marrington greatly in debt. But I hope this may be false. Oh, Jane, had we been less secret, had we told what we knew of him, this could not have happened. Perhaps it would have been better, replied her sister. But to expose the former faults of one person without knowing what their present feelings were seemed unjustifiable. We acted with the best intentions. Could Colonel Forrester repeat the particulars of Lydia's note to his wife? He brought it with us for he brought it with him for us to see. Jane then took it from her pocketbook and gave it to Elizabeth. These are the contents. So here is a letter. Um, I think Haley, you can't post until it's done, until this is posted. So maybe tomorrow you can add it in the comments below, or I'll try and add it when I go to edit. I think I have it still. It might be on my phone, but I think I can easily find it because I think you gave it to me in Discord, the link. So, but again, I really want to support other readers, so I want it to be on there. Great, small world, isn't it? That's really great. I love when guys connect with each other. So here's the note that was left from Lydia Bennet before she eloped. My dear Harriet, you will laugh when you know where I'm gone, and I cannot help laughing myself at your surprise tomorrow morning as soon as I am missed. I am going to Gretna Green, and if you cannot guess with who, I shall think you a simpleton, for there is but one man in the world I love, and he is an angel. I should never be happy without him, so think it no harm to be off. You need not send them word at Longbourn of my going, if you do not like it, for it will make the surprise the greater when I write to them and sign my name, Lydia Wickham. What a good joke it will be! I can hardly write for laughing. Pray make my excuses to Pratt for not keeping my engagement and dancing with him tonight. Tell him I hope he will excuse me when he knows all, and tell him I will dance with him at the next ball we meet with great pleasure. I shall send for my clothes when I get to Longbourn, but I wish you would tell Sally to mend a great slit in my worked muslin gown before they are packed up. Goodbye. Give my love to Colonel Forrester. I hope you will drink to our good journey. Your affectionate friend, Lydia Bennet. She's just clueless, isn't she? Yeah, it doesn't let, oh no, it's going to let me do it. Hold on. I have to give it approval. No, it says error, try again. It doesn't let me do it. No, we'll do it afterwards. Sorry about that. So there's the note from Lydia on her elopement. She's just clueless to all the impact she's caused. Oh, thoughtless Lydia, cried Elizabeth when she had finished it. What a letter is this to be written at such a moment. But it shows at least that she was serious in the object of her journey. Whatever he was able to persuade her, it was not on her side a scheme of infamy. My poor father, how he must have felt it. I never saw anyone so shocked. He could not speak a word for a full 10 minutes. My mother was taken ill immediately, and the whole house in such confusion. Oh, Jane, cried Elizabeth, was there a servant belonging to it who did not know the whole story before the end of the day? I do not know. I hope there was. But to be guarded at such a time is very difficult. My mother was in hysterics, and though I endeavored to give her every assistance in my power, I'm afraid I did not do so much as I might have done. But the horror of what might possibly happen almost took me from my faculties. So it's like, did all the servants and the housekeepers know? Because then it's just the gossip of everywhere. Once the staff knows, then everybody knows. And so Elizabeth's like, oh man, we're just ruined, our whole reputation. Your attendance upon her has been so much for you. You do not look well. Oh, that I've been with you. You've had every care and anxiety upon yourself alone. Mary and Kitty have been very kind and would have shared in every fatigue, I'm sure, but I did not think it right for them either. Kitty is slight and delicate, and Mary studies so much that her hours of repose should not be broken in on. My Aunt Phillips came to Longbourn on Tuesday after my father went away, and was so good as to stay till Thursday with me. She was of great use and comfort to us all. And Lady Lucas has been very kind. She walked here on Wednesday morning to condole with us and offered her services, or any of her daughters, if they could be of use. She had better have stayed at home, cried Elizabeth. Perhaps she meant well, but under such a misfortune as this one, cannot see too little of one's neighbors. Like, she just wants to keep it to herself. Assistance is impossible, condolence insufferable. Let them triumph over us at a distance and be satisfied. She then proceeded to inquire into the measures which her father had intended to pursue while in town for the recovery of his daughter. He meant, I believe, replied Jane, to go to Epsom, the place where they last change horses, see the postilions, and try if anything could be made out of them. His principal object must be to discover the number of the hackney coach which took them from Clapham. It had come from a fare from London, and as he thought the circumstances of a gentleman and ladies who were moving from one carriage into another might be remarked, he meant to make inquiries at Clapham. If he could anyhow discover at what house the coachman had before set down his fare, he determined to make inquiries there, and hoped it might not be impossible to find out the stand and number of the coach. I do not know if any other designs that he had formed, but he was in such a hurry to be gone, and his spirits so greatly discomposed, that I had difficulty in finding out even so much as this. So, a recap. I'm so glad, Erhan. I hope you enjoy the other books. I hope you subscribe. I hope you share the books with the channel with other people so we can keep growing. And then just as a recap to this chapter, it's just a lot of detail to support the scandal that this is, to help us, the reader, in a distant time. She had no idea that I mean, maybe she did. Maybe she realized that her book would have the success that it has. But she was so careful to help us understand the society at the time. There's so much that we take for granted in our own cultures that we don't really explain it if we were to be a writer. So that context of society is really important. And all of this helps us to see the pains they're going to track down this couple, to read their thoughts, to see, oh, Lydia really did intend to go off to get married. So Wickham is kind of the bad guy in all of this. And we're seeing the chaos and the response in the mother and the father and the family and in the household, that the younger sisters are still flippant and don't get it, and the older sisters are trying to protect the younger sisters. So that's kind of the point of this chapter. And we move on to chapter 43. I'm on page 275, and how many pages total? 368. So 100 pages left. Less than 100. We'll get there. I hope you guys have a happy new year. Hopefully I'll be back to reading more often. I do go back to work on Monday. Thankfully, I'm working still remotely. Technically, I could take off longer for sick leave, but, get back to work. It's a good thing. Arhan, Discord is, hey, Dr. Priyanka Panda. How are you? I hope you ended up having a good Christmas night dinner. But Discord is an app that you can download and talk. I mean, we have so many different areas. We can even converse. Like if some of you want to practice your English, we can get on and have conversations. We can text. We can talk about books or movies or culture or literature, all those things. It's something that I haven't figured out how to do. I'm surprised YouTube hasn't created little rooms, breakout rooms and things like that. And then on Discord, we will be watching together on a teleparty, which a lot of the apps are now doing, which will allow us, if you have the app Teleparty, it will allow us to watch Pride and Prejudice together, and we can comment to each other as we go through. I pre-watched it because I hadn't seen that particular one, and there are some things about it that I'll make comments about, characters that I didn't think were well portrayed. So, well, it's still daytime. What time is it here? It is 2:30. So, it looks like family is coming over this evening because I'm finally out of quarantine. So we're going to have like hors d'oeuvres and maybe a glass of wine together and exchange our gifts. So I'm looking forward to that. And I appreciate you guys being here. Kelly, you always thank me, and I always thank you because I appreciate you being one of my, not oldest, but longest, most faithful. You've been with me the longest is what I'm trying to say. So my oxygen held up really well. I can breathe much better now. I'm so thankful for that. I hope you guys stay well. I hope you don't get it. I hope you're able to get your vaccine soon. I hope to get to see my dad soon. If you're watching, hi, Daddy. Um, I miss seeing him, but we're being very careful because the doctor said you don't have to get tested again. The doctor said I'm done with quarantine, but I'm not going to risk it with my dad. So I'll risk it with my young children, but not my dad. So um, great. And I'm glad to hear that. Um, so, guys, thank you so much for joining me. As I said, that little picture of me in the corner, click it, you'll subscribe. Then that helps our community continue to grow, and that's, I think, exciting. And Priya, I have, see, I've always thought the two of you might be the same person. And you know how people change their names. But Dr. Panda and Priya, both of your names are very similar, Priyanka and Priya. So I'm so glad you're here. I appreciate you guys joining me. Uh, I can't see the Galia Al Mishri. Hi, it's good to see you, or not see you, but glad you're here. I appreciate you guys coming on. Um, I hope we have a good 2021. We stay healthy. And I will read to you next time. And I'll say, Inshallah. I always want to say that. For those of you that are Muslim, when I say I will read to you next time, I always feel like I need to say, Inshallah. But keep reading, be healthy, and Inshallah, I'll read to you next time. See ya.